Hello everybody. This video is going to cover the traditional or conventional deadlift. First and foremost, everyone's deadlift is going to look different. I say again, everyone's deadlift is going to look different. There is no one size fits all when it comes to deadlift technique. Some people are tall, some are short. Some are fat, some are skinny. Some prefer a wider stance, some prefer narrow. Some look up, some look down. Some deadlift with a flat back, some deadlift with a round upper back. One technique cue that makes sense to one person might not make sense to another. Now, with that said, I created this video for novice or beginner lifters. I wrote down each major reoccurring problem that I've observed over the last few years, and I simply followed it with a solution for each. I hope this video helps you perfect your deadlift technique. Let's get started. First off, ditch the running shoes. You can lift barefoot, or if your gym doesn't allow that, I would get some old Chuck Taylors, some wrestling shoes, or you can bro it out with some Vans. All of these shoes work because they're flat. When you have material between the bottom of your feet and the floor, you raise yourself up closer to the bar, which puts you at a slight deficit, and now you have to bend over even further to reach the bar. This makes the pole longer. Plus, running shoes are made to be comfy and squishy so they can absorb impact. If you wear running shoes when you deadlift, you might as well be wearing couch cushions under your feet. Let's talk about feet position. I would suggest putting your feet right under your hips. I prefer to point my toes out slightly to prevent my knees from bowing in, and it helps me activate my glutes. But you can put your feet straight ahead if you'd like. Your feet placement when deadlifting should be very close to your feet placement in a vertical jump. A big problem I've seen with beginning deadlifters is setting up with too wide of a stance. This usually causes their knees to cave inward. You wouldn't test your vertical jump with a wide stance, so I would not suggest deadlifting with one. As far as how close you should stand next to the bar, I'd suggest cutting your foot in half with the bar. Cut your whole foot in half, from your toes to your heel, not just from your toes to your shins. This is going to help you keep the bar over the center of your foot throughout the entire pole. Now let's move on to hand position. This drill is fairly simple. Raise your arms out in front of you and then drop your hands straight down. That's the correct distance between your hands. For most people, that's going to equal out to grabbing the bar right outside of your legs. However, that's not the case for this handsome gentleman. Adam has pretty wide shoulders and a fairly narrow deadlift stance. Adam's shoulders are roughly 26 inches wide. His deadlift stance is only about 14 inches wide. So when he places his hands on the bar, there is a large gap between his hands and his legs. This is correct, and it's what works for him. As for grip styles, you can go with the double overhand grip. The alternating grip, usually you'd place your non-dominant hand in a supinated position. Or if you don't value your thumbs, you can go with the double overhand hook grip. Now let's talk hips. You want to put your hips in a position that places your scapula directly over the barbell. This is going to put your collarbones slightly in front of the barbell. Doing this is going to allow you to pull the barbell in a straight line. A common mistake is to sit the hips down too low. This places your scapula and shoulders behind the barbell. This pushes your knees forward, and now the barbell has to travel out and around your knees. This is also going to make it difficult to engage your posterior chain. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you don't want to have your hips too high. This is going to put your shoulders and scapula too far out in front of the bar, and it's going to resemble more of a stiff leg deadlift. It is also going to be difficult to initiate the pull with proper leg drive. Head position. I like to put my head in a neutral position and look slightly down. I've noticed that looking up can cause a novice deadlifter to sit his or her hips down too low. Like I said earlier, this forces the barbell to go out and around the knees, and it prevents them from properly using their posterior chain. Some prefer tucking the chin and looking down. This will usually cause the hips to shoot up too quickly, not allowing the deadlifter to take full advantage of leg drive at the bottom. Now that you know where everything is supposed to be, let's get started. Rather than casually getting into position and simply picking the barbell up, I want you to pull yourself down to the barbell. Pull yourself into the correct position. Get your back tight, hamstrings locked and loaded, and lats activated. Boy, I'm telling you, when you pull yourself into position, you should be flexing the trigger ready to explode. Don't be the guy who just bends over, does a little deadlift dance, and jerks the hell out of the barbell with loose noodle arms. This is a good way to get hurt. Here's a tip. Pull the slack out of the barbell before you stand up. You'll hear this tiny bit of slack in almost all barbells. Finally, we can stand up. There are two angles that we need to identify. The first angle is at the hip, the angle your torso and thigh make. The second angle is at your knee, the angle your hamstring and calf make. When standing up, both angles need to open up at the same time, and both angles need to lock out at the same time. Again, both angles open up and lock out at the same time. The most common problem I've seen is the knee angle opening up before the hip angle. This causes your butt to shoot up and forces you to use all back. This is an indication that you are not using proper leg drive to stand up. A less common mistake is when the deadlifter pulls the bar to his or her knees and continues to open up the angle of the hip while shoving the knees forward. This is what leads to hitching. This is usually an indication that there's a lack of posterior strength or the athlete is very fatigued. This is common in strongman when the deadlift event calls for maximum reps. So how the heck do you make sure your knees and hips are opening and locking out at the same time? You can get a good training partner to watch you, or you can record yourself. But most importantly, it's all about what you're thinking in your head. Personally, I like to imagine the barbell is chained into place and it's not going anywhere, but the ground below me can be moved. I pull myself down to the bar and I drive my feet through the floor, trying to push the ground away from me. Thinking about this allows me to use maximum leg drive to break the bar off the floor. Once the bar is at my knees, I simply squeeze my glutes together as hard as I can and violently fire my hips into the bar. A quick word on lowering the bar. Lower the bar the same way you picked it up, in a straight line. Don't lower it out and around your knees. Also, it's called a deadlift for a reason. Start from a dead stop every time. Bouncing off the floor makes the pull easier, and it also increases the likelihood of you jarring yourself out of position, potentially leading to an injury. Touch and go deadlifts do have their place in training. They increase time under tension, which can reap some nice gains. But if you choose to do them for higher reps after some heavy dead stop deadlifts. A quick recap: feet hip width, hands straight down, shoulder blades over the bar, head neutral, pull yourself down to the bar, drive your feet through the floor, squeeze your booty cheeks together, lower the bar in a straight line, repeat, and train Untamed.